Remember This by Charles Bukowski. Believing what they say or write is dangerous, especially if they say or write impossibly grand things about you, and you are foolish enough to believe them. You are then apt to smash the camera when somebody attempts to photograph you in public. Or you might get drunk at your place and shoot through the window at your neighbor with a 44 Magnum. Or you could purchase a very expensive automobile and then become irritated with the less wealthy in their old cars who block your progress on the freeway. Or you might get married too many times, or have too many girlfriends. Or you could go to Europe too often, or get high too often. You could abuse waiters, refuse autograph seekers. You could even kill somebody. Or, in 1,000 other ways, you could even finally kill yourself. Many do. Oh, hello there. I didn't see you guys come in. Welcome to Bitcoin Talk Show. I was just reading a little bit of Charles Bukowski's Sifting Through the Madness for the Word, the Line, the Way. And I just like this one. I like the way he's saying you could go to Europe too often. He's just talking about the different problems when you believe your own bullshit, right? When the media throws it back to you and they're like, you're the greatest person. You're the king of Wall Street. You're the Wall Street crypto king or whatever you are. And you start then believing that. What a disaster that can be, as Bukowski shows here, how you could quickly roll out of control and really have nothing to ground you. Nothing at all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's always good to be grounded on the floor, and not having your head just floating above the ground all over the place. So absolutely, stay true to who you are.
And never believe your own bullshit. But we'd like to thank everyone for watching this morning. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share like we talked about yesterday. YouTube judges these videos based upon how many thumbs up they get. Yesterday, we had a near record-setting amount of thumbs up. We almost had 200. We had about 192. So our basic goal is 100. So every day we want to try to get each one of these shows to 100 likes. And then beyond that, our advanced goal would be 200. So we need everybody working together. It doesn't cost anything. You might have to create a YouTube account. But again, if you want to subscribe, you need an account anyway. So once again, to be the best YouTuber you can be for no money at all, create an account, subscribe, and like every video that's good. If a video is no good, go ahead and give it that dislike. But what YouTube likes is when you're engaged, because what YouTube is really judging there is engagement. Spoiler alert, it doesn't matter if you thumbs up or thumbs down. I mean, I prefer if you thumbs up, but either way, YouTube is counting the engagement. And a video that gets a lot of thumbs up is more interesting than a video that gets no thumbs up. The same thing could be said about thumbs down. But today, this is Bitcoin Talk Show. Today is Sunday, August 5th, 2018. My name is Thomas Hunt, and here's what's happening today in Bitcoin. As always, you can support the World Crypto Network by donating to the Bitcoin address on your screen right now, or any of the crazy altcoins down below accepted by Trezor. We might just do a check of those altcoin donations later in the show, so get your altcoin donations ready. We'll see if you guys put your money where your mouth is. Which altcoin will win? Find out later in the show.
Or just stick to Bitcoin.
Or just stick to Bitcoin. We'll tell you how much Bitcoin we got to. That's $1 for 14,290 Satoshis. Looks like we're headed back towards the 15,000 Satoshi barrier. No one knows. Also, we've got the top 100 cryptocurrencies by market capitalization over at CoinMarketCap. Let's do a quick check of the market, see what's going on. I'll go ahead and refresh it to get that fresh data. Ethereum up 0.5 point, Ripple even, Bcash up 1/4, EOS down up 0.5 point, Stellar up 1 3/4 points, Litecoin down 1/4 point, Cardano into the top 10, up 2.5 points. IOTA up 7 points, fighting its way into the top 10. Tether holding out the 10, with Tron and Monero running behind. Over at World Coin Index, we can look at these coins based upon their volume. The volume is how much these coins are being traded. Today's altcoins by volume are Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, EOS, Litecoin, Ripple, Ethereum Classic, Tron, Dash, and Qtum. Bit of a different picture when you look at them by volume. And that's why we've got a poll right now on Mad Bitcoin's Twitter. You can vote today at twitter.com/madbitcoins. How should we sort the crazy altcoins? And so far, almost 50 people have voted. 57% of them agree with sorting them by volume. 43% say market cap. It is a very close poll, so we'll look on the results of this poll tomorrow. And depending on the results of this poll, we'll decide whether we stick with coin market cap, which sorts them by market cap, which again is a very questionable statistic. If I print 1 billion coins and I sell one coin to Max for $1, suddenly I have a market valuation of $1 billion. It's amazing. However, if we looked at the volume, I would have only sold one coin for $1. So I would have like a volume of $1. It would be very difficult for me to fake the volume in the same way that I could fake the market cap. That's why I'm thinking that volume will probably win this poll. But go ahead and vote. Put your vote out there. Let us know. Should we go by volume or market cap? And again, once the choice is done, we probably won't do 2 sets of altcoins. We'll just do the one. As always, you can support the World Crypto Network on patreon.com/WCN, where we're up to 30 patrons donating $232 a month to keep this network going. And over at the patreon.com/madbitcoins, we have just 79 patrons donating $474 a month, very close to that $500 barrier, the big round number. Imagine if we got to 5,000. Next, we might get to 1,000. Ooh. Over at our Tallycoin fundraiser, we've collected $157.12. That's 0% towards our goal of $1 million, which keeps getting further away. When we started, it was around 125 Bitcoins. Now it's 142 Bitcoins, meaning that you should just go ahead and donate the $1 million to the World Crypto Network. The longer you wait, the more Bitcoins you're going to have to donate to get us to that $1 million marker. Yesterday, we had this great story we want to recap today. NYSE trader following the backed launch. Bitcoin is very iffy. You could solve it in a jiffy. It looks quite spiffy because Bitcoin is very iffy. We asked John Light yesterday if we could get one of these sweet BitSeeds 3 to try out on the show. John said he'll see what they can do. So there is at least a possibility of maybe a discount, or maybe just send me one and I'll do a bunch of free advertising for you. We talked about the BitSeeds yesterday. It used to be a larger box with a hard drive. I think this is some kind of a Raspberry Pi in a box, maybe with a little USB hard drive or a little flash hard drive, something like that. But basically, this is what I think we're looking for the full nodes. Easy setup. Just plug it into your router and turn it on. That's what I'm looking for. If I'm going to run a full node, if it's a little box that sits by my router and I never ever have to touch it, that's cool. I'll do that. I'm not sure about this price. I think $359 is a little too high. $299 might be the sweet spot. Really, if we could get it down to $199 or $99, I think we could get a lot of these into the field. Once again, Bitcoin nodes help censorship resistance. The more Bitcoin nodes there are, the harder it is to shut down the Bitcoin network. Whereas the Bitcoin Cash network is going the other way. They're making their nodes even more expensive. This $359 is nothing compared to a giant server rack and having to rent the space and the bandwidth and everything. So that's the difference between the two projects. Bitcoin has lots of nodes. Bitcoin Cash has very few nodes. Bitcoin is very censorship resistant. Bitcoin Cash, not so very much at all. Despite the NYSE's biggest news of the year for Bitcoin, crypto markets plummet in a blink. And once again, it's not always the news. Sometimes it's simply the charts. You've got to figure the people looking at these charts. Where's my chart? It's gone. But you got to figure they're looking at these charts. They decided to sell anyway. They're just looking at the charts. They don't care about the news, and it just blows right by them. So if the chart says sell, then the chart says sell. If it says buy, maybe they'll buy. But let's just see how that goes. Looking at the mainstream media, it's all about the price. How many of these Bitcoin articles mention dollar signs and numbers in the price? Let's see. 1, 2, 3 out of 4. 4. of them. Here's a number for bearish forecast, and they're about out of it here. But yes, it's mainly about the price today. Some people are reporting on Starbucks, still saying May, still covering themselves. But what do you think, Max? What about the mainstream media and the price today?
It's horrible, right? Every time, all they talk about is price. It's really not that interesting, because if you've been in Bitcoin for longer than a couple of weeks, you know how crazy price can be and how crazy price is. So when you hear stuff like, "Oh no, it's falling. It doesn't have a floor. We're all gonna get like negative value for Bitcoin instantly. Oh God," you know, to just ignore that. And on the other hand, if you hear people talking about, "Oh wow, we're going to the moon, 10 billion Bitcoin by tomorrow," you also know, yeah, that's just fun. Um, I personally really don't care too much about the price, because it is really the most boring thing we have in Bitcoin. But of course, you know, it's important and it gets the clicks, right? If you talk about the price, then everyone is going to click on your video because it's the price. It's so exciting. So I get it from that point, but still, you know, provide some high quality content.
I was impressed by that one newspaper that was running that series of articles designed to get people to kill themselves, where it was like, if you'd bought Bitcoin last month, you'd be a millionaire now. And then next month they run an article, if you bought Bitcoin 3 months ago, you would have lost all the money you ever had. And then 2 months later, if you bought Bitcoin 2 weeks ago, you'd be the richest MFer in the world now. And it's just, they just keep swinging back and forth, and they never tell people, hey, Bitcoin price is down. If you want to be one of those rich guys, you got to buy it when it's down and sell it when it's high. That means that when we're depressed about Bitcoin, that's when you have to buy. And when we're excited about Bitcoin, that's when you have to sell or hold. The news channels never do this. I really can't believe it. We've been watching more CNBC than normal in the house here. We just kind of leave the channel on. I'd say 90% of it is Shark Tank. If you ever watch in the evenings, it's the all Shark Tank channel, just like TBS is all Friends repeats. But on CNBC, I keep looking at them and I wonder, all of you didn't recommend Bitcoin 5 years ago. Why aren't you all fired? Are you into investing or not? Because clearly Bitcoin, Ethereum, all these other goofy things were the only good investments in the last 5 years. The only ones where you could make an amount of money that would change your life. Sure, 3%, 5%, Apple went up a little bit. But if you weren't recommending Bitcoin, and now if you flip-flop and you're like, oh yeah, I'm recommending Bitcoin now. Why didn't you change before? Why didn't you change earlier? Why are you just a bandwagoner? And it's obvious that I'm not going to get any interesting or independent thoughts from you. So why are you still on this channel? I was watching the Mad Money guy, and he had all these buttons he could push to make sounds. And I was like, is one of those sounds? I'm sorry, I didn't buy Bitcoin. I'm sorry, I didn't buy. I'm sorry, I didn't buy Bitcoin, because that's what he should say every day. Every day he should be like, I don't know anything about stocks. I'm making 3% at a time. Bitcoin went up 5,000%. I'm the stupidest person alive. Every single day, that's what all the news channels, all these financial people should be saying. But instead, they're pretending that they know about Bitcoin now. And we got that Brian Kelly out there, Mr. Nautilus Coin, captain of the pump and dump team. Now he's officially CNBC's Mr. Crypto. So you can trust him. He knows things now. But again, he reported on Ethereum Classic after it went up 12%. He reported on Ripple when it was $3 a coin. He reported on Stellar when it was going down too. Like, these mainstream media people, they're just following. You're not going to learn anything. If you think you're going to learn about Bitcoin by turning on the TV, you're in for a horrible surprise, because they don't know anything. Times have changed and they pretend to be interested, but they just don't have any kind of basis for their knowledge. They don't have any reason. So.
Yeah, I mean, with the power of hindsight, everybody's a genius. I mean, it's so easy to predict afterwards and say like, well, look, I was right. This was the bottom, this was the top. Truth is, nobody knows. I don't remember who did it, but they said they studied tarot reading versus TA on cryptocurrencies and reached about 50-50 success rate.
Yeah, he was the caller on the show. That was
I
fun.
think so. Yeah, I forgot his name, but that was very interesting, I thought. And I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the price as well. Like, I don't take quite a strong stance as you, Max. I know that you think the price doesn't matter. I mean, it matters a lot. It's just that I do agree that it's one of the least important or interesting aspects of Bitcoin. However, how do we get new people in? Well, like it or not, it's the price. That is the thing that ultimately the conversation always turns to the price. So I do think it matters a lot as long as we measure things in dollars. And of course, we're talking dollar price right now. I mean, one Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin. And once you reach that level of sophistication and understanding of the protocol, then that's all you're going to care about. And you already know you're not going to invest your mortgage. You're not going to invest money that you can't afford to lose. So once you reach that point, then the price doesn't matter. But before that, it matters greatly. And it matters to us as well. Like the three of us here and talking, I think we all, to some extent, live with Bitcoin, and that it does matter, because then one day you can pay a little bit more of your rent with the same Bitcoin than the other day. So yeah, just wanted to bring that out. And yeah, if any kind of anxiety manifests itself, or you start to feel like it's too risky or whatever, that's a sure sign that you bet too much. Like only put in as much as you can afford to throw down the drain. So then you won't care if it goes to zero in fiat terms. However, the protocol remains. So the protocol keeps working. One Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin. You can still send it to anybody without anybody being able to stop you. And that's the true value behind the Bitcoin.
Exactly. And if you have any like really tough problems, and if you really need someone to talk to, you could call in, right? So call in either now or later in the show at SKYPE World Crypto Network, all one word. And we would love to talk about your problems and how you lost a bunch of money on Bitcoin. If you want to depress us, but even better, tell us how you made a lot of money in Bitcoin and what you plan on doing with it. So there's always a bunch of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, that's awesome idea. So I have a ton of money loss stories to share as well. If that makes anybody feel any better, I'll be happy to share my stories as well.
I definitely agree with Nico. As a content creator, when the price of Bitcoin's going down, your runway is going down. So you have less time where you can make shows before you have to get a real job. When the price of Bitcoin's going up, your runway is going up. So you have more time to make shows. When it swings faster, it's a bit jarring, because yeah, you're like, I was going to make a lot of shows, and then you're like, no, I'm going to go get a job at McDonald's. It's over. So got to swing with that. But
yeah, absolutely. Like for example, I've gotten recently another construction job, because I need some fiat and I don't want to sell at a bottom. So that's exactly what's happening right now. So to me, the price matters quite a bit, actually, because it is away from making content, and it is away from me educating people.
Well, that's definitely the way to go. I remember the price was trending down a few years ago as we entered into the great decline. And I told everybody, I was like, Mad Bitcoins is getting a job. You guys should all get a job. And I did get a job and managed to hold on to my little stack throughout all those hard years. It wasn't very fun holding up to the top and then holding back to the bottom, and then pretty much doing it again this time, although I sold a little bit. Not as much as I should have. It's the kind of thing, you buy yourself a nice watch, you really should buy yourself a house. But I'm not good at spending money, so it's pretty bad. But as always, we've got the call lines open right here on World Crypto Network. This is Bitcoin Talk Show. You can call us now at SKYPE World Crypto Network, all one word. We'll try to keep the show open at least till 10 o'clock. If you guys could give us some calls. It is Sunday morning, usually a more popular time for calls on the talk show. A lot of people don't have to work on the weekends. But then there are other people who work every weekend, and they get Tuesdays and Wednesdays off, and maybe those are their favorite days to call in. So it does vary around here. We do have the new Google Earth feature open, currently requiring me to use a different window. Very annoying, because the in-browser version of Google Earth doesn't seem to have any features at all. Even this feature to add a place mark of where people have called. As you can see, we've been adding place marks just the last couple of days. We had 2 calls from Florida, 2 calls from the Chicago Great Lakes area, actually 3 calls. 1 call from the middle of Montana, out there by himself, and a couple of calls up here from Seattle and Vancouver up in the Northwest. So it's interesting to see the distribution so far. And then we also had a call from Barcelona. Let's not leave that out, because we had 1 European call. Previously, we've had calls from Turkey, Russia, Ireland, the UK, all over the place. So I'm curious to see where people will call next. I think this globe thing is a fun idea. although it is just one more thing to keep track of. Basically, when you do these shows, you always try to find a way to make things easier, especially if you're doing them every day. So this actually makes things harder. So it's a reverse step. We are working on getting a server to run so that we can share the Bitcoin talk show and maybe run it in more time zones, things like that. So far, getting a server running has been very difficult. I took a long time to choose a company. Then I chose the company and they said, no, you can't install software like that on a dedicated server. You need a managed server. And so I canceled my one server and got my new server. And then I went on there and I ran my software and it just runs terribly. The sound skips and the audio is bad. And I'm like, I worked so hard to produce this nothing. And we'll see. I
Yeah,
emailed the guys. We'll see.
but isn't that fascinating that although this technology is already 30 years old, 40 years, 50 years old, it is still so difficult, right? And it's one of the toughest problems that we're working on here is just how to live in cyberspace, how to use that digital information to communicate and to do that in an efficient way. And yeah, it sounds easy to say that, yeah, let's just get a server room, install Skype so we can have calls from whenever, wherever. But still, it's magic, pretty much. It is super advanced technology, and although it seems easy, it always is a bit tough, but still sucks.
Yeah, we're still moving forward on that, trying to get the server. Might have to cancel that company, try a different company. I'm sure what they're going to say is that, sir, we can solve your problem, but instead of paying us $50 a month, you need to pay us more like 75. And then when I have another problem, they'll say, oh, 100 a month would really be better. So we'll see how that goes. I would love it if they could deliver a product I could use. As of right now, I'm just simply paying all that money for nothing. So we're checking in with you in the chat, seeing if we can get some calls on the phone lines. It's 9:20, pretty hot time for YouTube. We've got 146 live viewers. I wonder how we're doing on the likes. I'm going to go check out the YouTube page so we can see if we've got the likes. Let's see. Jeremy says it's compressing the video and audio on the server. Yeah, I mean, they probably sold me a server with like the least amount of bandwidth possible. Just enough to get the VNC in there, not enough to actually do anything. Which again, I don't know why they would share this, terrible server thing. But yeah, if you have some kind of expert advice on servers, feel free to hit me up on Mad Bitcoin's Twitter. You can send me a direct message or just send me a public message if you want to recommend a server company publicly. Basically, right now we're just kind of running Skype, Google Hangouts, and a program that connects the two together. There's a Mac version of the program, but there's also PC versions of that program. It's not a very complicated program, but then again, you did need administrator access to install it. So I guess it was that complicated. But we'll see how it's going here. We're waiting for some phone calls. Keeping the phone lines open on SKYPE World Crypto Network, all one word. People are saying they want to see their hometown appear in the pins. Well, if you want it to appear, you have to call in. We're keeping track of who calls in now on Google Hangouts. Again, you could always just say you're from New York, New York. I'm never going to know. But if you want your city to be on this map, and it would be better if you just say New York if you have a generic city. Here we go. It worked. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Good morning, Thomas and Max. Jeff from Ohio again.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going today?
Going great.
What's up, Jeff?
Hey, Max. Hey, I just wanted to comment on how lucky we are to have such brilliant, clear-thinking minds in Bitcoin. I just listened to Pierre Rochard. He was on a podcast. I can't remember the gentleman's name. Oh, what Bitcoin did. I don't know who runs that podcast, but what a brilliant young man, just clear thinking. You listen to these people who I'm going to call geniuses. Now, whether Bitcoin succeeds or not, these people are still geniuses. Trace Mayer, without a question, a genius. He's been making the rounds on a number of these shows. Saifuddin Ammous comes out of nowhere with this brilliant book. We just have some minds in this science. I'm going to call Bitcoin a science. I think it is a science that just blow me away. It's hard not to listen to them and just feel comfortable with a long-term position. It really is difficult. The market can make anybody look dumb over a period of time, but even, all this current FUD and everything that you mentioned earlier, everything's about price. Just look back 1 year. We're up 2.5x in 12 months. So, I mean, come on, what do people expect? Let's just keep growing and adopting at that rate, and we're going to be just fine. But yeah, I just wanted to comment on, the gravity that Bitcoin has for these geniuses is really phenomenal. And if anybody ever gets nervous about their long hold position, just listen to these guys for a few hours. It'll have an effect on your thinking.
Well, I agree with you, Jeff. I think we have a lot of smart people in Bitcoin. And when we stop to wonder why this is, I think it has to do with what I said a little while ago about Bitcoin maximalism, that Bitcoin, by attempting to solve the sound money problem, is one of the greatest, fixes that we're working on in the entire world. Like I say, it's a science project and all that. I really think it is. And this is a science project that actually does something. So if I was out there and I was a scientist or an economist, or like Gabriel said, those 4 different categories of people, cryptographers, game theory, all that kind of stuff, I would definitely want to be working in Bitcoin, commenting on Bitcoin, just being involved, because this really is the big leagues, right? This is the major league of problem solving on sound money, problem solving on game theory, cryptography, computer science, all these different fields. And I think it's super excited. So it's great to have these people around.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Thomas. And Jeff, you're 100% right that the best people that I know, the most intellectual, the most smart, the most genuine people are in Bitcoin. It is really crazy how many enthusiastic and well-educated people work on this topic. And it is exactly why Thomas said, it's because it's sound money. And sound money is such an incredibly useful tool with such an immense power behind it, that if the money is bad, the entire society is corrupt and awkward. But if the money is good and sound and free in its philosophy and principles, then it's going to be a beautiful society. Not just the society, but of the individual, not just the one person, but the entire economy with all the participants. And that is fantastic.
Sure, you're sure. And I like to think of it as a place to store the value of your labor over a long period of time. Now, people are getting caught up. Well, it's dropped this much in 6 months, but we got to zoom out, take a longer view on this. We're going to have a lot of, when you try to disrupt the legacy system that is not sound, and we saw that 10 years ago, there's really no good reason why we must have a growing economy to store the value of your labor in money. That just doesn't make any sense. But we've all been taught that. We've all been taught that if we don't have a growing economy, we're going to suffer. Well, people that have taught us that have had a vested interest in teaching us that, and they're getting wealthier and wealthier because they can leverage the system, they can leverage everything. Meanwhile, the for lack of a better word, I'll call them the plebeian class, the labor class. We all have the same desire to store the value of our wealth, to eventually be able to invest that wealth in capital projects, if we choose to, that could have return. There'd be risk and reward with those capital projects, but we have those same desires, and we're just we are at a disadvantage. So I think, we got to zoom out on price, knowing that the long term, it just keeps moving up that long term trend line. It overshot by a big amount. we were all happy when it overshot. You know, everybody was happy, everybody was joyous, but in reality, it was an overshoot based on where the technology was at that time. And the technology has only increased, you know, with the advent of SegWit, with the Schnorr signatures coming aboard. Bitcoin is separating itself from the pack, and we just have to be patient. You know, we fuss at the media. Oh, the media is focusing on price. Well, you know, we're looking to reinvent money. It's going to focus on the price. We're going to see horrendously negative articles, and we have to expect that and just let time be our friend. There's going to be a time where the media is pumping this thing beyond belief, and we're going to know that it's happening, and we're going to be happy at that point. So we got to take the good with the bad and relax a little bit, and just, I think we can just be fortunate that your listeners, obviously the people that host your show, have such a solid knowledge of this, that if this experiment does come out of beta, we are going to be so far ahead of everybody else, and we're going to be at such an advantage that it's almost going to seem we're almost going to be ashamed of the type of advantage we have over other people. That's how big this is. Will it work? I don't know, but it's worth taking the risk.
I agree, Jeff. We're in a tough period right now, but it is worth taking the risk, and it is going good. I think it's going to be all right, and we just got to keep going. So, Max, Nico, what do you guys think?
Well, if you're not taking risks in life, then what the hell are you doing? I mean, what kind of a life is that? Like, if you're not going to, if you don't take a risk and put something for later to try to achieve something, to try to build something, then you're just going to be stuck where you are. And I don't think that's a very fulfilling way to live. Of course, maybe some people are happy to do so. I certainly am not, and I see what I see is that most people are not like that. Most people want to be free, and Bitcoin can provide that freedom. If you take that leap, but you got to take the risk. You got to put in the hours. You got to put in the work. There's no way around that. So that's why I do agree that we talk too much about the price sometimes, because people are looking for the lottery ticket, and then that will, once they have enough euros or dollars, then they will buy their freedom, which is incorrect. You need a sound money for that.
The funny thing is that you talk to people who don't understand Bitcoin, they will think you're not taking a risk. They'll think you're taking a big gamble. But I think people who are involved in this understand that it's not a gamble. It certainly is a risk, but it's not a gamble, because of the sound science and the momentum we have going forward with the development of the project. We understand that it's not a gamble. Certainly a risk. Yeah, anytime you put your money on the table, there's a risk of market fluctuation. But longer term, I like to say, I mean, a gamble is just, you know, throwing a set of dice out there without any type of assurance or any type of understanding what the result could be. We've got some idea of where this can go and what this can do, and the science. And it's just I think Trace Mayer has said this before. This is an amalgamation of sciences, you know, of math, of networking structure, of computer sciences, of economics. It's such a brilliant amalgamation. I can hardly see this coming out of one person's mind. It just you know, exciting. So
yeah, absolutely, Jeff, and I agree. And I agree that this is not something that can be done only with one person. Not one person is smart enough to even build a pencil, let alone something as intricate as Bitcoin. So yes, absolutely, this is something that we all have to support, and that we all have to try to increase. And I don't think that it's a gamble. A gamble is something where the odds are not in your favor. So you go, you know, play in the casino in Vegas for Thomas's, right? After the meetup, so you still have some Bitcoin to get your beer and pizza during the meetup. But after, you go gambling, and you know that in aggregate you're going to lose. There's a 98.5 or whatever it is chance that you're going to walk out with less money than before, and that just means that you are gambling that the known effect is actually going to manifest itself. But in Bitcoin, it's a bit different here. We are full aware that we could lose everything. The price of Bitcoin could crash down to zero. But this downside is limited. On the contrary, if this quote-unquote gamble manifests itself, and if Bitcoin is going to be the one sound money for the entire world, then the upside is almost infinite. So we have a limited downside with an almost infinite upside. And that is not really a gamble. That is an anti-fragile system, as Nassim Taleb shows in his book, Anti-Fragile. And he goes clearly into that differentiation between gambling and just a asymmetric down and upside. Definitely something worth looking into.
Yep. And the thing that Pierre mentioned on this podcast was the Lindy effect, which I'd heard of it before, but he sort of reinforced it. The Lindy effect is the longer something is around with a value, the more extended period of time the expectation is it'll be around with a value. So every day that Bitcoin keeps chugging out these blocks, the Lindy effect works in its favor.
I definitely agree with that, although I do want to push back on this idea that Satoshi might not be a single person. I agree with you guys. It does take a whole team to build something like this, except with computer software. There's something about computer software where you can seamlessly reuse the other person's code. So you really do get to stand on the shoulders of giants, right? And that's what I think Satoshi might have done. Just like Linus reused all of that code of Richard Stallman. So he was able to be able to take all of Stallman's tools and put them in Linux because of the idea of open source code. In that same way, Satoshi needs a bunch of these tools, like things that Adam Back has built, things that Nick Szabo has built, things that other people have built. Satoshi puts these tools together, and then suddenly we have Bitcoin. I don't know either way, but just a little pushback there that it might still be a single person, or maybe he wrote it and then he worked with a team to publish it. We don't know. So.
Well, even the concept of a difficulty adjustment. I mean, how does one person have the ability to have all of the knowledge needed to make that type of calculation without, like as you said, Thomas, relying on others in the whole process? Now, maybe he was one person that had a lot of resources and a lot of discussion, but I don't think it just popped out of one mind. I think there was, maybe Satoshi was one person, but put it all together. Obviously used old cryptography and things that had been around for a while and solved the double spend problem. It's amazing, it's something we have in Bitcoin on our storyboard and our storyline, which is amazing to have, and it draws people in, and I'm happy we have it.
I also think it's easier to imagine Satoshi as a single person because he did so well at keeping this secret. If there were 3 people, if there were 5 people, if there was 10 or 12 people, I think we would have heard about this secret by now. But that's just under the assumption that it's really hard to keep secrets. So.
Oh yeah, it really is hard to keep secrets because it is a non-scarce good, right? As soon as I speak the secret to someone else, not only do I still know the secret, but the other person knows it as well. And the more people talk and talk and talk, the more exponential the network of the people knowing the secret is going to increase. And eventually it's not going to be a secret anymore. So yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, I agree that the difficulty adjustment is one of those mind-blowing innovations that Bitcoin brought with it that seems so boring and superficial when you first look at it. But the more you get into it, the more fascinating it is. So for example, with gold, as the value of gold increases because more people use it, the more people are going to mine new gold bullions, new gold coins out of the ground. And this means the quantity of the money will will increase. And if the quantity of something increases, this leads to a fall in price. So the more people use gold, eventually this will increase the money supply, which will decrease the value of the currency. With Bitcoin, for the first time in human history, we found a money that when it increases in value, more miners are incentivized to mine for the system, But because of the difficulty adjustment, this does not mean that more Bitcoin are being produced. Still 50 Bitcoin every new block, right? So this did not change. But the new miners, they make the system more secure, which does not mess with the money supply in Bitcoin, but rather increase. So for the first time, we have a sound money because nobody can mess with the money supply. That's genius.
Yep, it absolutely is. Hey guys, I'm leaving you with one thought here. I got to get going, let somebody else get on the line here. But on the other side of these sells, there's buyers. And I think we know who these buyers are, and they don't care about short-term price fluctuation. So I think we're in for a good few years here. All right, have a good day, guys.
Thanks so much for the call, Jeff. Give us a call anytime.
Thank you, Jeff. See you on the next one.
Okay, thanks.
And as always, you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. We're keeping up the U.S. map here, trying to keep going till about 10:30. People in the chat talking about things. Matthew Scott says, Starbucks may be amassing Bitcoin to fund the bank's physical ETFs, not to give back to customers. I would agree with that, although I'm not sure that it's Starbucks amassing the Bitcoin. At least based upon my reading of yesterday's announcement, this company, backed by the NYSE, is going to be acquiring the Bitcoin. I imagine that Starbucks is in a similar situation as someone using BitPay. Starbucks wants the dollars because they need to buy more coffee with dollars. So they are more than happy to trade the Bitcoin to this backed company. What the backed company wants the Bitcoin for, I agree with you. It might be for an ETF. It might be for a bank. It might just be to collect a large number of Bitcoin and then to do a large sell to a large buyer. There's a lot of reason to want a bunch of Bitcoin, and it's not so easy to get them. So a deal with Starbucks and Microsoft might be the way that you fund your Bitcoin bank. And we look at this years later and people say, wow, all those Starbucks purchases made this gigantic bank. And there it is. That will be how it happened. So what do you think, Max and Nico? Is Starbucks going to hold the Bitcoin, or are they going to trade them to this backed?
I don't think they're going to hold. I don't think they're going to hold, to be honest. I don't think any business at the moment holds. Like, there may be few, like mostly single entrepreneurs, I think. But big businesses, they have too much risk in the personnel expenses, insurance, salaries, all those things, too many liabilities. They need a stable coin, unfortunately. So I don't think they're going to hold.
Now, it was very risky, but I know that Overstock.com held a bunch of their Bitcoin. And at one point, while the price was down, they were talking about getting rid of their CEO and getting rid of their board and what a terrible mistake it had been. And now that I think the price is back up, they're celebrating, and they just can't believe their good luck that they held this crazy Bitcoin. But it could definitely go both ways on you. It can't be predicted. You could be a smart CEO one day and the worst CEO ever the next day.
What really is interesting to me is that the countries that have been seizing Bitcoin from criminal activities like Silk Road and stuff like that. For example, in Finland, I know that the government has confiscated some Bitcoin. It is actually holding some Bitcoin at the moment. And I think, was it Ukraine? Maybe that had also quite a sizable amount of Bitcoin that they are still holding and they don't know what to do with. And that might actually be an interesting thing to see if, when and if Bitcoin's price is going to take another spike.
Oh yeah,
what kind of geopolitical shift in power is going to cause.
People always talk about the Bitcoin Pizza Day, where Laszlo bought the first stuff with Bitcoin, so actually used it as a money. And people always say, "Oh, he's so stupid. Why would he sell his Bitcoin for some crazy stupid pizza?" And yeah, you might think about it like that, but I like to think about it on the contrary. Look at the entrepreneur who took on the risk of selling his pizza, his hard-earned product that he put his labor and his his capital into, and he sold that for some magic internet money that he had no idea was going to work out. Yeah, super risky, But look at that. He got for 2 stupid pizzas that cost him like 30 minutes to prepare, he got 20,000 Bitcoin. That is fantastic. So, you know, see it from the entrepreneur side. If you are an entrepreneur and you accept Bitcoin, you are one of those pioneers in a new sound money. And here in a new sound money, the entrepreneurs that are the early adopters will benefit much, 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 much more than the users of this money, per se, the consumers who are just going to buy stuff with it. You actually have to earn it. And that is when sound money is at its best, when you earn it.
Right, and I think it's worth to point out that it was actually the entrepreneur here who took the risk, was the guy who connected Laszlo to Papa John's, which I believe the pizzas originated from. So he saw the opportunity to see this business that obviously doesn't know what a Bitcoin is and doesn't care, just wants the money for the product they are providing. And they saw this guy who wanted to use this new money. He saw the opportunity. So you can be that person. You can be that somebody like a medium in the medium of exchange, in the human medium of exchange, if you will. So you can facilitate this thing. Like you can take somebody's money and give, you know, turn it into Bitcoin.
I'm also seeing a lot of people in the chat who don't know how Bitcoin works. Everyone's like, no, don't spend your Bitcoin at Starbucks. But if Starbucks is giving you a 20% discount to spend your Bitcoin, it's pretty easy to spend $100 worth of Bitcoin, go to Coinbase, go to Cash App, go to local Bitcoins, call up your buddy on the phone, and buy $100 in Bitcoin. You see, you spend it, then you buy it. Everyone's like, no, spending is the worst. Don't spend your Bitcoin. No. And even this article I'm looking at right now, they're like, oh no, what if you spent your Bitcoin on chicken? Oh no, rah. Well, again, you spend your Bitcoin on chicken, then you rebuy your Bitcoin. I don't have to make a chart for this. Do I have to telegraph it out or tell you guys the steps? Because again,
we need a flow chart, Thomas. We need a flow
chart. Yeah, because I mean, if you're getting a discount, and I mean, I know this, I worked at Purse, I used to promote them, and it was pretty easy for me to say, yeah, spend $100 at Amazon, get $120 worth of value, and buy your Bitcoin back. Just buy them back. You can use it temporarily. Yeah.
And you know, it's a currency. It's a currency, for Christ's sake. Just use it as a currency it's meant to be, not to buy another currency. Yeah, you can do that with your money, but why would you use a money to buy another money? That is nonsensical. You use a money in exchange for buying stuff. So go out there and buy stuff with Bitcoin, not euros, not dollars, not fiat, because that is just trading something that can get stuff for something that can get stuff. So you're not really gaining anything in switching your Bitcoin to fiat. On the contrary, go out there and get the stuff directly with Bitcoin, peer-to-peer, as it was supposed to be. So no credit cards, no like magic gift cards or whatever. Yeah, it's nice to use those things, but whenever you can, try to use Bitcoin as it was meant to, as an electronic peer-to-peer cash system. It's in the title. Come on.
And people were talking about the KFC Bitcoin bucket that was briefly available at KFC Canada, not KFC in the United States. And they were talking, they said it might be a fixed price bucket, that it was a fixed amount of Bitcoin. So Canada made a mistake. That's probably why we're not hearing about it anymore. They quietly hid the story and stopped talking about it. But it says here that for a limited time, a paltry 0.001156 got you chicken. And we can check right now, the price of that Bitcoin right now would be about $8 in the US. So even if it is Canadian dollars, like they say, that's only, I don't know the exchange rate right now. It used to be like $1 to $2 or $1 to $1.25. So it could be still maybe $16. Let's be kind to KFC. But they're losing $4 on every bucket of chicken that they sell at this low price. So that's probably why they're not offering it anymore. And once again, you could just buy the chicken. So this guy says, yeah, start again. It's not. It's a zero sum. It's a what's it? I'm not sure the exact term, but it's an opportunity cost or a zero sum game or something like that. But basically, someone else will give Starbucks your Bitcoin. You may be the one who's not giving your Bitcoin to Starbucks and you're taking a moral stand and you're, doing all that. But if you can get 20% off at Starbucks for spending Bitcoin, someone else is going to give Starbucks their Bitcoin. So by you not doing it, all you're doing is you're losing that 20% because there's plenty of more people in line behind you. I forget the name of that, but that's a logical fallacy type thing that you've fallen into. But yeah, it's up to you if you want to spend your Bitcoin and rebuy your Bitcoin. I know some people do that even when the price is going down, and then they get more Bitcoin when they rebuy. But it's up to you. I'm just saying it's an option. People are all like, "Oh no, if I spent my Bitcoin, I won't have any more." And if you got a little money in the account, you can always buy that $100 back or that $20 back. It could be bad. You could spend $65 on drinks, and the next week it's worth $185. But you got to shrug that one off. At least you got the drinks, and you got to use Bitcoin for it. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, and we talk about dollar cost averaging for buying Bitcoin. Well, let's talk about dollar cost averaging when selling Bitcoin. So anytime you use Bitcoin as the currency that it was meant to be, you are selling it for something else. And so you get the purchasing power that Bitcoin represents, in exchange. So for example, if you want to buy a small car and you pay 1 Bitcoin for it, you are giving up the purchasing power of the equivalent of 1 car, which is 1 Bitcoin, right? And in exchange, you do get the physical car. So you actually get the thing that you want to have, the thing that you consume or use in production. And that is why you use the money for. And so if you continuously, number one, accumulate Bitcoin, so dollar cost average buying Bitcoin, where you sell either your fiat money or your goods and services and your labor against Bitcoin, so that you can accumulate more Bitcoin every single week, every single day. But then also, if you sell every single day, not for fiat, but for actual good or labor or service, then you have dollar cost averaged out of Bitcoin. If you do both things together, you're going to have a smooth run throughout Bitcoin.
And Bitcoin, go ahead, Nico.
Yeah, one fallacy I run into oftentimes from the people of dollar and other shitcoiners is that somehow once you turn to Bitcoin maximalist, you cease to exist and you don't eat anymore, you don't go out, you don't buy a new computer or anything really. You just hodl on, and then somehow you get all your life force out of that. That's obviously not the case. And yeah, I think a lot of people are forgetting that you are supposed to use it as a currency. And sure, it is deflatory, pretty strong at that too, and it's a sound money that will, in all likelihood, go up. It could also go down, but if you don't use it, then what's the, you have to be able to use it. That's how the liquidity is provided, and that's how you can trust in the future also that you can sell your Bitcoin for something because people are using it. If people are just hodling it, then maybe the market is not that liquid.
And Bitcoin Jake in the chat writes that he uses his Visa Shift card linked with Coinbase, so he can put his paycheck in crypto every week and spend it as needed like anyone else. Another idea would be to use the Cash app. The Cash app seems pretty easy if you want to buy another $10 in Bitcoin because you just spent it. And anything like this where it's linked to your bank account, so you can keep the USD in there, and then you can spend the Bitcoin, and then you can buy the Bitcoin back with the USD. And it's just like you're spending the USD through the Bitcoin.
Yes, well, Bitcoin Jake, it's nice that you are starting to exit the system, the fiat system, and starting to use Bitcoin, but you're not fully using it, right? So you're using Coinbase, which is a custodial service, not electronic peer-to-peer cash, right? And then you're using Visa, which is a company payment network. It's a private, centralized, and closed source blockchain, if you want to call it that. So it's not all the way there yet. Of course, this is already much better than using fiat as is, but just try to use Bitcoin without Coinbase and without Shapeshift, but just with your own wallet, right? Get Green Address on your phone, get Samurai on your phone, both two amazing wallets, and you can use Bitcoin even simpler than using it with Coinbase. It's a much better user interface. You can do much more stuff, and it's actually your Bitcoin, not somebody else's. And so I love what you're doing, but go all the way.
All right, and we have a question from Skype now from Margot in Barcelona. She says she can't call in right now, but she had a quick question. She says one of the previous callers said that Bitcoin was in beta. What would happen for that to change, and when would you see that happening? Well, I would say, I mean, he's only kind of saying colloquially that Bitcoin's in beta. We're just kind of batting that term around here. Bitcoin, the software, works very well. It's been running constantly for the last 8-9 years, whatever it is, and it's been having no trouble. So Bitcoin, the software is fine. What's actually in beta right now is the Lightning Network, which is a second layer built on top of Bitcoin that allows to send around small amounts of Bitcoin without paying the fees you'd have to pay on the Bitcoin network. So I'd say that Lightning's in beta, so maybe all of Bitcoin's in beta. When will it come out of beta? No one really knows, but with a thing like Bitcoin, with a thing like money, you have to make sure you do it right. Previous software, you have a bug, the person's video game crashes, your instant messenger browser crashes, you can't send a message to your buddy, it's not the end of the world. If Bitcoin crashes and it sends the wrong amount here, or someone receives more than they're supposed to, or something like that, it's actually money. So it's a huge disaster if Bitcoin crashes. That's why they're very careful about adding things to Bitcoin. They're very specialized. And we had such a big debate over the block size because the block size, the bigger block guys were just like, just add bigger blocks. It's so easy. You turn a 2 into a 4. And yeah, it is easy. You do turn a 2 to a 4, but that's not thinking, right? That's short-term, basic thinking. You're like, of course we could inflate the car tires twice as much and we'll have a smoother ride, right up until the point that those car tires pop and you have to buy new car tires and you have to spend half your day on the side of the road waiting for car tires, when once again, I've told you over and over again, Bitcoin's an airplane circumnavigating the world and it never lands, right? It never lands. Mid-air refueling this whole time. Very complicated. So, Max.
Exactly, right? We have this alpha and beta software if it's a centralized software. If there's one party that can click on a button and upload it to all their new users and say, this is the new version, use it. But that's not how open source development works, right? That's not how Bitcoin works. As Thomas said, it's this crazy plane that is flying nonstop. In Bitcoin, there are, you could classify it as alpha and beta, but I think much more adequate is classifying it as either being on-chain or mainnet or testnet. If it is testnet, then it's a blockchain that will be destroyed after a while and it doesn't have any long-term value. But if it's on mainnet, it's it. Like, this is the alpha that we have. This is the beta that we have. This is Bitcoin. And ever since January 3rd, 2009, it's been running. So we have gotten out of the testnet phase into the mainnet phase on January 3rd, 2009, and we have never left it. So Bitcoin is the airplane that just continues nonstop. But Nico, what do you say about that? Nico there. I don't think so.
Nico might have gotten away, but as always, you guys can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. We're going to try to keep the phone lines open a little bit longer, having a bit of a slower show on this Sunday morning. People are sleeping in, I think. I think that's what's happening. But Nico's back with us. What was your question again for Nico, Max?
So Nico, we're talking about open source development and how we cannot really classify alpha and beta on open source, or can we actually? And is there such a thing as Bitcoin and alpha or beta?
That's interesting because we're working on this open source project as well, and we are thinking about, like, for example, WeEconomy, we are talking about launching an alpha. But what it actually means is it will be a centralized launch, like you said. I think I heard you say the testnet will be deleted at some point, but once it's in mainnet, it's an official release. So in that sense, I guess there is no alpha or beta release for the mainnet. The testnet should be that. So maybe we should call the testnet, I don't know, alpha, or is that confusing? But yeah, but basically what I think is that we have testnet and then we have the main release, and whatever the testnet is, then I guess it depends on the project if there's any aspect of centralization. But it's kind of a tricky, and we are actually working on that now because it's a protocol that we don't really want to associate ourselves strongly with, that being in control of that because of obvious reasons. And yeah, I guess it should be decentralized from out of the gates, but it's a work in progress.
I'm getting distracted there. They're talking about BitQuest and Minecraft in the chat. So. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, my name is Ken, calling from Thailand.
All right, Ken, what's on your mind about Bitcoin today?
Well, I want to ask about mining. I have 20 ASIC miner, but now I cannot afford the electric. What am I gonna do now? I pulled the plug now. I can't afford to mine Bitcoin anymore.
Okay, when you were mining, were you making money off it or was it covering? How was it going?
I was making pretty good money, but I used that money to build the facility even more to get it bigger and bigger. But now I just have facility and bunch of miners that's not running now.
Well, it's very tough to trust people in Bitcoin. So that's the first thing I'd warn you about. But basically, I can only think if I was in your position, I would try to package it up and sell it online. I would take pictures of it. I would, describe your processes. If there's any kind of, books or invoices or something, I would probably put all that together into a file, as long as there's not any trade secrets or anything like that in there. But generally, yeah, you need to find a partner is what I would say. And I don't know exactly how to find you a partner, but I'd put it out there. I'd put it on Twitter, put it in the groups, and try to find somebody, maybe even somebody who's in Thailand, so that you guys could meet and you could have more of a trust between each other. But if you could get a partner, you could get a loan. Otherwise, if you were making money, maybe a traditional loan like from a bank or something like that. I'm not sure how the situation is in Thailand, but yeah, because it's a tough game because those miners are only losing value, right? So you got to get them plugged back in soon. I don't know. I can ask. What do you think, Ken? What have you tried so far?
What about if I wait until the price of Bitcoin go up and plug back in again? Think I can make profit that way. But the difficulty is it gonna keep rising?
Based on everything that's happened in the past, the difficulty definitely keeps rising. So you would be able to plug them back in when the price was up more, but you wouldn't have the Bitcoin that you could have mined when the price was down. It's a tough game. I think it's tough to say you'd have to do the math, but just not looking at the figures, I think it's better to have them on all the time and to get the Bitcoin, and then to wait until the Bitcoin goes up to sell it. But it really does depend on paying bills and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I imagine in Thailand it's difficult to make it profitable because you can't really. It's difficult to use the excess heat, and that's why a lot of miners are in cold climates, because you can actually get a lot of value out of the heat. If there's no way for you to utilize that and you don't have especially cheap electricity, I think it's a losing game. I would also look into maybe selling.
So you think there won't be any profit after the Bitcoin price go up?
Well, that's the thing with mining. There are always
I think
profits.
Max, we're having an audio problem. Maybe switch your audio.
Okay. Is it better?
Yeah, that's better.
Is it
Go
better?
ahead.
Okay. So the thing with Bitcoin is that in mining, it is always profitable, marginally so. So you will only be marginally profitable if you are marginally better than the average miner. And if you are not, this means if you have, high electricity prices and high prices to cool your warehouse and everything, then you will lose money, regardless if the price is high or low. However, if you are marginally better than the other miners, then you will make money all the time, non-stop. So it really depends on your operating costs and on how efficient you can be.
Okay. That's a lot of help.
We're also talking to the chat here. The chat, they basically say you shouldn't feel that bad. A lot of other miners are having these same exact problems. They say you might want to look into solar panels. I don't know if that's a winner of an idea or not. Solar with hydropower, I'm not sure you could do that. Cheaper electric is one of the ideas they're saying, and that just to be careful, because if the price does go up, more miners will start and the difficulty will go up as well. So yeah, I think we're mainly seeing, get a partner, get cheaper power, maybe like Nico said, try to sell off a couple of the miners. Maybe they're still worth money just for the hardware. But yeah, it's a tough spot to be in. We wish you all the best.
Okay. Well, thank you for all the suggestion.
And thank you so much for the call. And
For your show a lot.
oh, thank you. Well, give us a call back in a couple of months. Let us know how it turns out. Certainly, we give you the best of luck, man. I hope it goes well.
Thank you. Everyone take
Yeah,
care.
good luck, man.
Thank you, Ken. And as always, you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network. Very cool to hear from Thailand. It's very far away from me. I've never been there. Looks like an interesting place. But what a tough position to be in for Ken and for all the other miners out there. The price of Bitcoin's down. You've got to buy electricity. You've already put your money into the miners, into the facility. It's a real tough position, and I don't have any good solutions. And I think we talked to the chat and we talked to our people here, and we're hoping for the best for Ken and for the other miners out there. But it's a tough game, that mining sometimes. So hopefully he made some profits early on. Maybe he'll still cover or make some profits on his way out of the business if that's what he decides
Exactly.
to do. So.
If you do not sell the Bitcoin, then you haven't realized your gains or losses. So it really depends when you have to sell the Bitcoin. Of course, you have to pay the electricity provider, so therefore you have to sell some of the Bitcoin immediately. But if you do believe that Bitcoin in the long term will be much more valuable because it is a useful sound money, then try to sell as little Bitcoin as you have to and try to save as much as possible, right? That's the mindset of sound money. If you do that, well, then maybe you're going to be profitable in the long run, even though you made losses in the short run.
And we didn't have that many miners back in the day or anything. It was just kind of we wanted to try out every different part of Bitcoin. We wanted to try mining. We wanted to try having a node. We wanted to try all these things. And for us anyway, what helped us on the mining is that we accidentally held onto some Bitcoin on an old computer. And 3 years later, 4 years later, we cracked into that Bitcoin, and it turned out that our mining operation had made money after all. So maybe if Ken can just accidentally hold on to some of that Bitcoin, throw it in a Trezor or a Ledger, maybe you might take horrible losses on the building and on the machinery and on the equipment and everything, and you might find yourself out of the mining game. But who knows, 3 years from now, 6 years from now, accidentally saving that little bit of Bitcoin could really help you out in the future. So that's what we'd hope for. People in the chat are saying they want miners in their house to help them with the heating. It's going to get cold in the winter, and they'd rather be mining that Bitcoin than just burning that fuel or whatever it is that you do in the cold. So that's a neat idea. Maybe he could ship the miners from Thailand to all these places that everyone else is at that it's cold. But then again, shipping things is just so expensive. Mining, it's a real tough game. You got to be on your numbers. You got to be very fast, and you got to get it going.
I think somebody should.
Go ahead, Nico.
Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I think somebody should start manufacturing ASIC miners with water cooling that you could plug into a floor heating system. That would sell like crazy in places like Finland because it's cold as balls here, and we need to heat it up anyway. And why not mine some Bitcoin while you're at it? Put some panels on top of the building as well. So whenever it's sunny, because we have a lot of sun here as well, and then use the energy to heat up the house and mine some Bitcoin. I think that's a slam dunk. But in places like Thailand, anything close to the equator, the game changes a little bit. So I would say I see a lot of potential in bigger, like huge solar farms, like for example, these parabolic mirror farms that use molten salt reactors to turn the molten salt into vapor that runs turbines. So that's one form of solar power, and the great thing about that is that is 24/7 energy, which will suit mining operations great. But this is the thing, like it's getting bigger and bigger, and if you can't compete with this, if you're not really going to go big, I don't think mining is the way to go at all anymore. I think it will be more profitable to just buy the coins, Bitcoins, and then leave the mining for the people who actually make it into a multi-million business. I think that's the direction we're going. But of course, at this moment, it still might be profitable. But personally, I wouldn't go that way, take that risk. But I do think these kind of consumer level heating devices, which I've already seen that work on convection, which means that they will heat up the air around it. But if you have a water block in a ASIC computer, that will be so efficient because you can use water to store so much more heat, and then you can run it to floor heating or something like that. That will be super efficient in terms of energy creation. Just my 2 cents.
Well, and I agree that there will be specialization in the mining market, so that the persons and the entrepreneurs that actually know what's up, that they will go out there and be as efficient as possible, right? But I don't think necessarily that this means that there will be only a couple huge mining farms that will be gigantic, with no mining farms other than that whatsoever. I don't think that the competition will be this restricted. I think because anyone can do it, anyone can open up a mining farm in his basement. Yes, it might not be economically profitable, but still, nobody is stopping you from doing that. I do think that there will still always be high competition of who's gonna find the next valid block.
All right, we did have a question in the chat about the Bitseed full nodes. I did reach out to Bitseed yesterday. I got a reply from John Light, my friend who used to work there. I'm not sure if he works there anymore. He says, I'll see what we can do. So I guess he still works there. I don't know. The Bitseed 3 is a complete full node. It's $359, a little high. But it does do what they say it does. It says they can just set it next to your router, plug it in, and turn it on. That's what I want to do. I never want to have to log in. I don't want to have to configure it. It would be great if it even started benefiting me when I just turned it on. Maybe my Bitcoin transactions go faster because I'm close to the node. I don't know. I'm willing to try it out if they'd like to send me one, or maybe give me some kind of a discount or something. Funds are always tight.
Well,
but we do look forward to them talking. Go ahead, Matt.
So what a Bitcoin full node actually does for you, it's not that much, but it's still nice to have. So first of all, it helps you with privacy. So if you first give the transaction to a full node, and that full node then starts propagating the message, the other full nodes do not know if your full node actually was the one that was making the transaction, or if it was just someone relaying the transaction. So that automatically increases your privacy and anonymity, because you no longer have to work together with SPV wallets who then know which transaction is coming from you. Next one is basically that you don't have to trust anyone. So you really are 100% the owner of your money. You set the rules, you verify them, and you enforce them. That is only possible with a full node. It doesn't really help you too much on the verification time. I guess the only way that you can make that easier for you is if you actually mine Bitcoin, and then you put your transaction always in your candidate and would, for example, not pay any fees then. You could theoretically do that.
That sounds great. We'll just have to give it a try. We also have a question from Slack. This guy says, what do you think about the risk of Lightning payment channels being centralized? I'm not really that worried about it because remember, you can always use Bitcoin. I hate to say it to you libertarians, you cheap bastards, but you can always use Bitcoin. If you want to have a very secure, a very secret transaction, you can just use Bitcoin. I don't know how complicated that is. If you're doing something like you're a secret agent, you could pay the extra $5 or $10 to get the transaction in there. It's obviously worth it because you're a secret agent. If you're just a normal person buying coffee, you're fine with a Lightning network. If you're spending less than $5, I don't think anyone cares. I don't think anyone's tracking you. So there's all this like Lightning is centralized and all this FUD that the Bcashers are stirring up. And I would just ignore that. I would just totally ignore that. Because once again, yeah, you can buy your coffee every day on Lightning Network for $5, or you can buy it every day on the Bitcoin network and pay the extra fees. It's up to you. So I don't think it's that big a deal. But thanks so much for the question. And
Well,
we're keeping, go ahead, Max.
If I can just a few cents on that, is that, you know, there are costs with opening and maintaining a payment channel. Mainly it's liquidity cost. If you have that channel open and you use it for routing, or you provide those funds for routing, then you can no longer use the money in another way. So there is a level on how much of the, or on how much money you can put in one single routing channel, because, well, eventually you're not going to make any money because it's so much money that you could buy a house with it. So you would much rather buy a house and living in a house than provide some liquidity for weird guys on the internet that you don't even know. So I don't think that there will be too much of an issue with that. And if you want to be truly peer-to-peer, then open a payment channel. It basically is the Lightning Network. You have instant transactions with no fees whatsoever, but you don't have to rely on any third party. You can just, do it peer-to-peer with only Alice and Bob. So if you want to have a truly peer-to-peer Lightning Network, use payment channels, because that's all what the Lightning Network is.
All right. Thanks, Max, for the more information. And we're going to try to keep the phone calls open here for at least a few more minutes. You can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. We did have some international calls today. We had a call from Thailand. That was pretty cool. And we had a call from Ohio, much closer to us than Thailand. So very cool if you guys want to call in. Otherwise, we'll head towards the end of this show. So we'll give you maybe 5 more minutes. I'm about out of things to stall and to talk about here. Let's see. I had some basic things I tweeted about. Let's see. Joseph Young says, "Oh, I thought Bitcoin was going to 9,400 last week. Now all the experts are saying 4,000. Dear experts, you don't get to change your predictions every 3 days, citing a change in market conditions. You either got it right or got it wrong." I think this is a big point. People need to keep it in mind that if they're just predicting things and they just keep changing their predictions, they're not really predicting anything, are they? And Nico sent us this tweet right now. He wants us to read. Let's see. So many browser windows. I wish I could get just a few more browser windows. Nico says, Lambo number 5, a little bit of Bitcoin in his bag, a little bit of Dogecoin, not a prank, a little bit of ADA on my mind, a little bit of Ether side by side, a little bit of Monero in the dark, a little bit of Neo, 'cause why not? A little bit of Litecoin is for me, a little bit of Bcash, just kidding. So there you go. It's a song. I think I remember the song. And you could get yourself a nice Lambo like that. Looks like a nice 80s poster, something that would have been on my wall in the 80s. I do remember I had this. It's funny, you think about Lamborghinis and it's like, oh, I don't really want one. I don't really care. I like Priuses or Teslas, things that get better gas mileage. But then I do remember in the 80s, I had an 8-foot poster of a Lamborghini on a checkerboard background with a hot pink kind of maroon background behind it, and it was a black Lamborghini. And I was like, well, if I was going to buy ridiculous things because the price of Bitcoin actually went up and we were actually crazy well off, maybe I'd get a crazy black Lambo just because I had the poster, right? Not because I need it or necessarily want it, but just to make the poster come true. That would be kind of fun. Maybe I could rent it. Maybe I'd be better off renting those typewriters too. But funny stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think, Max?
Nico, fantastic song. We absolutely need more of that. So how do you suggest, how can we start with Bitcoin karaoke parties and Bitcoin cover bands and all that kind of stuff?
Dude, I swear, like we've been talking about this with the Finnish Cryptocurrency Association, like the members, and we have this awesome chat on Telegram. And there's so many talented guys there that know how to rap and make lyrics, and I think we're gonna do at some point, hopefully this summer already. That would be so awesome. Like even for a one-time event, we should get together and maybe as a community we can come up with some lyrics and make a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency song or whatever. That would be so cool. We could even do Lambo number 5.
Very
Exactly,
cool.
yeah. And you know, I do like the song from what is the show called? The Magical Crypto Friends, right? With Fluffy Pony and Samson Mao and all those guys.
Yeah,
So
I
that
love that
is
as well.
not for everyone, right? So I love every time I see a TV show mentioning Bitcoin and some music lyrics talking about it. That's fantastic. We need more.
They're saying in the chat there was a Transformers toy that turned into a Lambo. That sounds pretty cool. I'd like to get that. Somebody else says, how about taking a DeLorean and turning it into an electric car? That sounds pretty good too. People are saying the reason that people want Lambos is because the doors, they go like this, right? But DeLorean doors also go like that. Of course, the DeLorean is supposed to be a terrible car. I know even just looking at it that the windows don't roll down properly. They only have like a half window or something. It's kind of like an old Volkswagen Bug. And I don't know if I'd want a DeLorean. I mean, I guess I'd want the time machine. That'd be fun. And I've heard that Brock Pierce has a DeLorean and that he's going to drive it in some kind of race somewhere. And that sounds very 80s fun. But yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty rough car when it comes down to it. And I wonder how the Teslas are going to turn out. If they're going to turn out to be like DeLoreans or if they're going to be amazing cars in the future. Because the thing about the Tesla no one ever talks about is they're building everything from scratch, right? They're building the door handles from scratch. They're building the, just every single part of the thing. They're not like GMC. GMC is like, use a standard number 4 door panel. And they're like, oh yeah, we got tons of those in the factory and they've tested them for a long time. I just don't know how the Teslas are going to turn out, especially over time. Well, let's see what else is going on Twitter. I had a great complaint for Apple's iTunes music search. I was searching for a song called Tossing and Turning, but it was tossing with an apostrophe instead of a G and turning with an apostrophe instead of the G. And it's so hard to tell what the name of your song is because I listen to it all the time and it always sounds like tossing and turning to me. And it was funny because there's a second song on the album called I'm Tossing and Turning Again. Because it must have been such a big hit for Bobby Lewis back in the day. Pretty interesting stuff. I saw a movie called Next Day Air. It was pretty decent. Of course, after seeing Jurassic World 2, any movie with a decent plot is pretty decent. So I had to compare it to the others. Patrick Stewart is returning to the role of Jean-Luc Picard for a new Star Trek series. Psyched. Nervous, concerned, also psyched. I hope it doesn't suck. I love this tweet by Hermit Thrush. He said, the Ghostbusters were not busting ghost for the safety of the community, nor for financial gain. The famous theme song reveals that the Ghostbusters bust ghosts because it feels good to do so. Very deep analysis of the Ghostbusters movie. As it says in the song, busting makes you feel good. They never talked about that in the movie. They talked about the joy they had from busting ghosts, but it must have been great fun. Let's see. Interesting article from Paul Vigna where he went on a pump and dump safari. He joined a pump group. The next message, they got the call. The pump was announced. It's going to be Cloak Coin. The price jumped up, going all the way to a peak of 48.4% higher than the initial pre-pump price before declining. So it sounds pretty amazing. It sounds like, I don't know, he might have even made some money, but check out Paul Vigna's article in the Wall Street Journal about pump and dump groups. Interesting stuff. And I've still got more video editing to do. This is my video from 2 weeks ago, but my new video will look very similar to this. It's me in downtown Las Vegas handing out Bitcoin flyers and spreading the word about Bitcoin. I've got to edit that today. So that's what my afternoon looks like. But I think we're pretty much heading to the end of this show. So I'd just like to ask Max and Nico, where can people learn more about you? Where can they find your stuff? Let's go to Nico first because I've got the Honey Badger website ready to go. So go ahead, Nico. Tell us about what's going on.
Awesome. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at OmniFin, double N at the end. I'm the chairman of Finnish Cryptocurrency Association, Consensus. You can find that on YouTube if you look for Consensus. We do English shows as well. Tomorrow we're going to do a show with the head of digitalization from Bank of Finland, Alexi Grimm, about his notions on cryptocurrencies being illusion and Bitcoin being digital sand. So definitely tune in tomorrow. And looks like we're going to have Max there as well. So definitely look forward to that. And that's pretty much what I keep busy with. And these T-shirts that you're showing right now, I do for fun mostly. Whenever somebody gives me an idea for a T-shirt, I like to do it and then just put it on the shop so everybody can order those. I get like a couple euros for each shirt. So if you want to order some cool shirts, then please do so. And hopefully you get some conversation started based on that and educate people.
Well, but of course, the important question, Nico, can you buy with Bitcoin?
I don't think you can. I think that's a Spreadshirt shop, but I have sold 3 shirts so far through myself. So that in that way that I place the order and then the buyer just sends me a Bitcoin. So if you want to pay with Bitcoin, that can be arranged. So just drop me a line on Telegram or Twitter or whatever. I'm pretty easily reachable. So I'll make that happen, no problem.
Yeah, perfect. I think you can do quite a bit with stuff like what do they call it? Like those special coupon codes where you can give 100% off and then get the Bitcoin other way. So yeah, it's kind of complicated.
Oh, that's an awesome idea. I'm definitely going to do that.
Okay, yeah. So for me, you can find all my stuff on my personal website, towardsliberty.com, and especially at towardsliberty.com/anarchy, you will find my paper on anarchy and money. And if you want to support that and check out how how the process is going on here and contribute, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. And then here on the World Crypto Network, we have a couple nice shows coming on. Next week, we're going to start with a call with Jimmy Song and talk about the education and development both in Bitcoin and in Austrian economics, which is nice. So that should be at 1 p.m. Central Time. Then on Wednesday, we're going to have a show with Ansel Lindner. So that is also going to be fantastic. And we're going to finish up the week with a show on Thursday with Giacomo Succo. So that is going to be fantastic. Going to start with some more interviews and hopefully talk more about Bitcoin and Austrian economics. Tagline of the show is called Read Rothbard and Use Bitcoin. So you definitely know what's going on here in that show. We're going to talk about Bitcoin and Austrian economics and how they both combine. So that's going to be an interesting one. Would love to have you on the show.
All right. Thanks, Max, for that update. Sounds like a lot of great shows coming up on the World Crypto Network. And I know you and Nico are going to do a show right after this on Nico's channel. So people check that out on Twitter at OmniFin with 2 N's. And I'll be sure to retweet that too. I think I'm going to take a break. My voice is starting to go. I've noticed I'm starting to use cough drops again. So not a good sign for my voice. I might be getting a little cold or something. But I'm going to try to drink some tea or maybe at least some hot water or something, try to turn this thing around. As always, you can support the World Crypto Network by donating Bitcoin to the QR codes on your screen right now. We even accept all the crazy altcoins that are accepted on Trezor. You can also donate at the patreon.com/WCN or patreon.com/madbitcoins. We've got a Tallycoin fundraiser. We're trying to raise $1 million to help spread the word about Bitcoin. So far, we've raised 0.02243 Bitcoin or $156.38. Thanks so much for your donations. Thanks for watching and calling in. We'll be back with another call-in show tomorrow morning. Be sure to check out Nico and Max, who are going live. Also, I saw Jose Arteaga was going to go live shortly too in the chat. So we've got a lot of people talking about Bitcoin today. It's a big Sunday. So don't spend your whole day in front of the computer. Maybe you can listen to these podcasts while you're walking around outside trying to do something different because it's a weekend. So thanks so much for watching. Until next time, bye-bye.